I can tell in about 10 seconds whether your book is going to sell. That sounds arrogant, I know, but it's not. It's just pattern recognition. I've looked at hundreds of indie author Amazon pages, and when a book isn't moving, the reason is almost always visible the moment the page loads. Before I read the blurb, before I check the categories or the pricing or whether the author has a mailing list, before any of that, because if the cover doesn't work, none of the rest matters. Nobody gets to the blurb, nobody clicks look inside, nobody reads your brilliant opening line. The cover is the door, and if the door looks wrong, people walk past without stopping. I know an author who had a series of books that were genuinely good, well written, great characters, the kind of stories that fans of Lucy Score or Colleen Hoover would devour. But the covers looked like Mills Boon, not modern romance, not contemporary women's fiction. They looked like the kind of books your nan would pick up in a charity shop. Soft, old-fashioned, completely wrong signal for the actual content. The readers who would have loved these books didn't recognise them, and the readers who were attracted by the covers picked them up expecting something completely different. Which means even if they bought them, they were disappointed. Wrong readers in, right readers walking past. The books had to be retitled and recovered. Same words inside, same stories, different packaging, and then they started to move. The writing was never the problem. The writing had never been the problem. But no amount of good writing can overcome a cover that's telling the wrong readers to pick it up and the right readers to keep scrolling. That's the first thing, and I'll get into the second thing shortly, because between the two of them, they explain why most indie books don't sell. Not because of the algorithm, not because of Amazon, not the market being overcrowded. Just two things that are both within your control. Hi, I'm Steve Kelly. This is Truth Bombs. Before we get into the uncomfortable question, I want you to sit with something for a minute. If your book isn't selling, what do you think the reason is? I ask because the answer most authors give and the actual answer are usually different. Go into any indie author Facebook group and look at the posts from people who aren't selling. You'll see the same explanations over and over. The algorithm changed. Amazon's burying my book. The market is saturated. AI-generated content is flooding the charts. Readers just don't discover new authors anymore. And some of that is real. The market is competitive. The algorithm does shift. There are more books than ever. But here's what I've noticed, and I've been watching this play out for a while now. The authors who blame external factors are almost always the authors who haven't done the basics. They haven't invested in a professional cover. They haven't touched their blurbs since they published. They don't run ads. They don't post about their book on social media. They don't send emails to their list, or they don't have a list at all. They put the book up and then they wait. And when nothing happens, they decide the system was broken rather than looking at what they hadn't done. I'm not saying the system is fair. It isn't. But the authors I know who are selling consistently aren't doing anything magic. They've got the basics right, and they're showing up regularly. The ones who aren't selling almost always have a gap in one of two places. The two things, for most of you listening, if your book isn't selling, comes down to one of these two problems, sometimes both. The first is your cover, the second is effort. That's it. I could make this a 10-item checklist and fill an hour going through categories and keywords and pricing strategies and back matter optimization. And all of that matters. We've covered some of it in earlier episodes. But if I'm being direct with you, which is the whole point of this podcast, these things are refinements. They're what you optimize after the fundamentals are working. And for most authors who aren't selling, the fundamentals aren't working yet. Your cover is wrong, or you're not doing enough to put the book in front of people. Usually it's one, sometimes it's both. And everything else is noise until those two are fixed. So let's start with the cover. Let me explain why I put this first, because some of you are going to push back and say your cover is fine. Your cover is the only thing standing between your book and a reader's attention. On Amazon, in a search result, on a book talk scroll, in an email newsletter, everywhere your book shows up, the cover is what a reader sees first. Not your name, not your title, not your glowing reviews, the cover. And they see it as a thumbnail, which means it's about the size of a postage stamp on most screens. In that thumbnail, a reader's brain is making a decision in less than 2 seconds. Does this look like the kind of book I read? That's the question. Not, is it a good cover in some abstract design sense? Does it look like it belongs on the same shelf as the books I already buy? This is where the Mills Boon example is so useful, because it shows exactly what's gone wrong. The author's book were contemporary romance with edge, the kind of thing that sits next to Lucy Score and Colleen Hoover on a reader's Kindle. But the covers were signalling a completely different subgenre. They were soft and traditional, when they should have been bold and modern. A reader browsing for Lucy Score style books would scroll right past them because the covers didn't say, "Hey, I'm for you." And a reader who liked the Mills and Boon aesthetic would pick them up expecting a gentle love story and find something quite different. The moment those books were recovered and retitled to match what was actually inside, they started selling. Same author, same writing, same stories, different cover. That's how much this matters. And here's the thing that makes authors defensive about this. You probably love your cover. You might have designed it yourself or worked with a designer and been through rounds of revisions. You choose the colours and the fonts and the image. It feels like yours. And when someone tells you it might not be working, it feels like they're criticising your book. They're not. They're telling you the packaging doesn't match the product. That's a fixable problem, and it has nothing to do with the quality of what's inside. If you want to know whether your cover is working, here's a test you can do right now. Go to Amazon and search the top 10 bestsellers in your specific subcategory. Not the broad genre, the narrow subcategory where your book actually sits. Look at those 10 covers together. Now put yours next to them. Does it look like it belongs? Not identical. You don't want a clone. But does it speak the same visual language, same colour palette, same range, same typographical style, same general mood? If someone glances at the 11 covers in a grid, would they think they were all the same type of book? If the answer is no, that's your problem. Not the algorithm, not the market. Your cover is telling readers it's a different kind of book than it is. Getting this right isn't even expensive anymore. There are pre-made covers, designers doing genre-specific work for £100 to £200. Custom covers from designers who specialise in your genre run £300 to £500. That's an investment, yes? But if your cover is the reason nobody's clicking, everything else you spend on ads and promotion is money you're pouring into a funnel with a hole in the top. We've talked about blurbs in episode 3, and the blurb is the second gate. Once somebody clicks on your cover, the blurb has to close the deal. But if the cover never gets them through, the best blurb in the world is performing for an empty room. So fix the cover first. The blurb is the second conversion. Then there's effort. That's the second thing. And it's harder to talk about because it's not a design problem you can outsource. It's a behaviour problem. Your book will not sell itself. I know that sounds obvious, but the number of authors who publish a book, put it on Amazon, and then sit back and wait for sales to roll in is staggering. And I'm not talking about brand new authors who don't know any better. I'm talking about authors with multiple books who still aren't doing the basic work of telling people those books exist. They don't run ads. They don't post about their books on social media. And when they do, it's once a month and it's, "My book is available here," link with no context and no hook. They don't have an email list. They don't engage with readers. They don't show up in communities where their readers hang out. They don't do anything and then they wonder why nothing is happening. And when you ask them about it, the answer is always the same. The algorithm isn't showing my book to anyone. Amazon is burying me. I've tried everything and nothing works. But they haven't tried everything. They've tried nothing or close to it and expect the platform to do the work for them. Amazon is a shop, a massive shop with millions of products. If you opened a physical shop on a high street, stocked the shelves, put up a sign and then never told anyone it exists, never ran an ad, never handed out a flyer, never mentioned it on social media, never invited anyone to come in, you wouldn't blame the high street when nobody showed up. You'd know the problem was that nobody knew you were there. That's what's happening to most indie books that aren't selling. The book exists, the shop is open, but the author hasn't done the work of getting people through the door. And I want to be clear about what I mean by effort, because it's not about spending 8 hours a day on marketing. It's about consistency. It's about showing up, posting about your book, doing it regularly on the platforms where your readers spend time, sending an email to your list when you have something to say, running even a small ad budget to test whether your cover and blurb convert, engaging with other authors and readers in your genre rather than just broadcasting it into the void. The authors I know who are selling steadily aren't marketing geniuses. They're just consistent. They talk about their books. They show up. They treat their author career like a business rather than a hobby. If you're not willing to do that, and I'm not judging you, writing books is enough for some people, and that's a perfectly valid choice. But if you want sales, you have to be honest with yourself about whether you actually have done the work to earn them. And I published it on Amazon is not the work. That's the starting line. So what about everything else? Now, some of you are sitting there thinking, my cover is fine, and I do put in the effort, so what's wrong? That's a fair question. If you've got a professional, genre-appropriate cover, and you're consistently marketing your book and it's still not moving, then yes, there are some other factors to look at. Your blurb might be letting you down. We've covered this in detail in episode 3, and if you haven't listened to that one yet, go back and do it, because the blurb is the second gate after the cover. That's a fixable problem, and episode 3 gives you the framework. Your categories and keywords might be wrong. If your book is sitting in a category where it doesn't belong, the readers browsing that category aren't your readers, and your actual readers aren't finding you. This is a metadata problem and is worth spending an afternoon getting right. Your pricing might be off for your market. If you're charging $4.99 for a book, one of a series, and you're an unknown author, you're asking a lot from somebody who's never heard of you. There's a whole pricing strategy conversation to have. But the short version is that the book one needs to be an easy yes. You might not have enough books. 1 book is a product, 3 books is a business. If you've got a single standalone novel and you're wondering why your income is inconsistent, the answer might just be that you need more books. We've covered lifetime reader value in episode 1, and the maths is clear. Series sell, backlists compound, and 1 book on its own is always going to be a harder sell than the first book in a 5-book series. That's where you get your strong read-through. All of these matter, but none of them matter if the cover is wrong and you're not showing up. You can have a perfect category, perfect pricing, perfect keywords, and if the cover is sending the wrong signal and you're not putting the book in front of anyone, all that optimization is doing nothing. Get the cover right, do the work, then worry about the refinements. So you need to have an honest conversation. I want to say something here that might not be comfortable, but I think it needs saying. Not every book that isn't selling is a good book with a marketing problem. Sometimes the writing isn't there yet. Sometimes the story doesn't work. Sometimes the book just isn't competitive in the genre at this point in time. I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm saying it because authors sometimes spend months tweaking covers and rewriting blurbs and testing ad strategies when the real issue is that the book itself needs more development. If you're getting clicks but no buys, or buys but no reviews, or reviews that consistently mention the same problem, that's feedback worth listening to rather than explaining away. The best investment most authors can make after their first book is getting better at writing their second. Take a course, get honest beta readers, not friends who will tell you that it's great, but readers in your genre who will tell you where they stop reading and why. Join a critique group. Read widely in your genre and pay attention to what the bestsellers are doing at craft level, not just the marketing level. The authors who improve fastest are the ones who are honest with themselves about where they are. And the market, for all its flaws, is a pretty reliable feedback mechanism. If your book has a strong cover, a good blurb, and you're putting it in the front of the right readers consistently, and it's still not selling, the book might be telling you something. That's not a failure, that's data. Use it. So here's what I want you to do this week. 2 things. Matching the 2 problems. First of all, the cover test. Go to Amazon, find the top 10 books in your subcategory and put your cover next to them. Be brutal. If yours doesn't look like it belongs on that shelf, start looking for a cover designer who works in your genre, not a generalist. Somebody who designs covers for books like yours and understands what readers in your specific niche expect to see. Budget £100 to £500 depending on whether you go pre-made or custom. If you can't afford that right now, start saving, because this is the single highest return investment you can make in your book. Second, the effort audit. Look at what you've actually done in the last 30 days to sell your book. Not what you've thought about doing, what you've actually done. How many times did you post about your book? Did you send any emails to your list? Did you run an ad? Did you engage with any readers or communities in your genre? Write it down, look at it. If the answer to most of those is nothing or once, there's your answer. The algorithm didn't bury your book, you didn't give it a chance. So in closing, I know this episode is harder to hear than most. Nobody wants to be told their cover isn't working or that they're not putting in enough effort. It's much easier to blame the algorithm or the market or the state of the indie publishing market in 2026. But the truth is that the authors who are selling right now aren't operating in a different market than you. They're in the same one, with the same algorithm, the same competition, the same challenges. The difference is they got a cover that signals the right genre to the right readers, and they're doing the daily work of putting that book in front of people. If your book isn't selling, you probably already know which of those 2 things it is. The question is whether you're going to fix it or keep hoping something will change on its own. The algorithm doesn't owe you readers. You have to go and get them. So remember rule number 1, write the damn book, and rule number 2, stay in the game. That's it for now. I will see you next time. This is the Steve Kelly Indie Author Truth Bombs podcast, published by Dark Wolf Publishing. No fluff, no filler, just the stuff that actually works.